the Middle East. Donald Trump, he did the impossible, and I'm going to tell you how he pulled it off exactly. So we are going to get to that this morning, and then we're also going to get to this, CNN melting down over Donald Trump's Israel-Hamas peace deal. And there was a host there who completely humiliated herself. I mean, very embarrassing. She made a very disgusting comment, and she had to later come out and apologize over that comment about the hostages that came home, the Israeli hostages. So we're going to chat about that. We're also going to chat about Illinois exposed, Pritzker's balanced budget. He comes out and he says that the budget is balanced all the time. And I know what you're thinking. Wait a second. We're the highest tax nation in the state, highest tax burden. Or is he a total fraud when he says that the budget is balanced? Yes. Yes, he is. So we're going to talk about that because there's this new state of this, it was a financial report done by Truth in Accounting, which is a nonprofit organization. They do good work over there. $38,000 in debt per taxpayer. That's what we're looking at here, folks, in Pritzkerstan. So we're going to be exposing Pritzker's balanced budget claims and why he's able to claim that. And I feel like a lot of us don't know how to, shut our leftist friends down when they say, oh, actually, Illinois has the highest credit rating. Actually, Illinois' budget is balanced. I'm going to teach you how to shut down your fellow leftists when they say things like that, because it's just not true. If you missed yesterday's show, I'm sorry. It was a good one. You got to go check out my Christopher Columbus special. I have never done Christopher Columbus. I've done a lot of holidays and Kwanzaa. I debunk what Kwanzaa is all about. We shouldn't celebrate Kwanzaa at all. It's truly disturbing. That holiday, it celebrates quite literally a cultist leader or a cult leader who wrapped up women in drop cords and burned them with irons, curling irons. Okay, so yeah, that's Kwanzaa. I've talked about Thanksgiving, the true meaning of Thanksgiving. I've done a lot of holidays. Juneteenth, talked about how Juneteenth isn't actually the ending of slavery. So yesterday I did a Christopher Columbus one. If you missed it, go check it out. It's archived on YouTube for you, Rumble. I'm also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you did not know that, you can download the podcast later in the day. It'll be made available to you. So welcome back, my friends, my patriots, my truth seekers. This is the Conservative Cat Show. This is where faith meets freedom and common sense has claws. And we claw through the noise. So good morning, Lisa. Appreciate you being here. Getting ready to go into the office. I hope you have a good day at work. Are you stopping, grabbing some coffee? Imagine being able to negotiate with terrorists, but not Democrats. Yeah. That just goes to show you how far our country has come. Like the Democrat Party has come. They are radical leftists, and they can't negotiate with the Democrats to open up the government and get the government to not be shut down anymore. But somehow Donald Trump was able to negotiate with literal terrorist Hamas. So yeah, I learned from your Columbus show more than I did in any of my years in school. I make my own coffee. Yeah, it's too expensive to go get it out. Yeah, Christopher Columbus, go check out the show. Lisa really enjoyed it. And she learned a lot. I'm glad that I could do that. I'm kind of a history nerd, especially when it comes to Christopher Columbus. He's like my favorite historical figure outside of Jesus Christ. So I love Christopher Columbus. I pour through primary documents all the time, and it's unfortunate that, I actually had a college friend of mine comment on a post, and he was saying, oh, well, he was actually all about slavery, and he enslaved the indigenous people, which is just an outright lie. The Spanish government, the Spanish crown, actually required Christopher Columbus to be respectful and treat the indigenous people there's a document out there. It's actually documented. I think it's called the Spanish Requirement. It's the primary document that says, hey, Christopher Columbus, we are requiring you to treat these people with respect. And he built all kinds of defensive fortifications. And I don't know about you, but a guy who's building defensive structures, he's not one to go out and be offensive and wipe out an entire, peoples, the indigenous people. It looked like, by all the documentation, you have the historical structures, the defensive fortifications. By all appearances, it looks like this guy was actually just trying to defend himself against the indigenous people. And he was just trying to bring his way of life, Christianity, to the old world and create the new world, which is so much better because it's not full of human sacrifice. And it's what we know of today. America, it's not full of human sacrifices, scalping. I was actually reading, and I promise we're going to get into Israel and Hamas, but I was actually reading about this. The indigenous people, they had really cool art. I mean, I'll give it to them. And their agricultural practices were pretty neat. And Columbus, he actually documented all of this. I mean, this guy liked to write everything down. And and we have all of this archived. So I don't know why leftists have, really revised our textbooks and have practiced this revisionist history, because we can go back to the primary documentation from Christopher Columbus himself. And he talked about, their agricultural practice, their art, and how that was all cool. But there's also something noted about the natives. They were really known for their warring tactics, their war tactics, and how they were able to be really good fighters in the battlefield. They were really good fighters because that's all they did. They just fought each other all the time. Okay, these warring tribes. So there was this really cool thing I was reading about how the Native Americans had a tactic where they would ride upside down on their horses' necks with their legs kind of wrapped around the horse's neck, and they were riding upside down, and then they'd shoot bow and arrows from being upside down, and they'd actually use the horse's head as a shield. And that's what they were really good at, was, this creating these warring tactic, this war strategy, or the fighting strategies, because really that's all they did. So, I mean, I'm not going to judge 15th century Native Americans for their human sacrifices and scalping. I know it's wrong, but that's because I'm exposed to the truth. At the time, these people weren't exposed to the truth, and that's what Columbus was doing. He was trying to say, hey, you don't have to eat each other or sacrifice each other to these gods, because they're not real. This is the one true God, and he's actually a God of mercy, and he doesn't demand blood. You should really convert to Christianity. So go check it out. I love the Columbus show. Now, here today, we are talking about witnessing something that I think is going to go down in history as huge, miraculous. We are witnessing something that the world said would never happen. Something that the so-called experts and the think tank types, the diplomats in their silk ties and their empty suits, they told us this was a fantasy. But the day has come. President Trump, the man they mocked, the man they impeached twice, the man that they told us that he was dangerous, right? He has done what no other world leader has been able to do. No administration, no globalists, Nobel Peace Prize winners of yesteryear. Okay. Nobody's been able to do this. He has brought peace to the Middle East again. I'm going to talk about the Abraham Accords and how this is just Trump bringing peace to the Middle East 2.0. Okay. So, Israel-Hamas, the peace deal is signed, sealed, and it's being lived out for our very eyes. The last 20 hostages have been released. The guns have fallen silent. The smoke over Gaza has cleared. And for the first time in decades, there is actual peace. There's not paperwork shuffling. There's not peace talks. No. There's no UN conferences. This is the real thing. And what did Trump say? He said yesterday in a speech, nobody thought this could happen. This historic agreement that we've just signed is the answer to the prayers of millions of people. Their prayers have finally been answered, and the hostages have been returned. And Donald Trump, he actually delivered a speech, and he talked about what's left to do. And sadly, it's to bring the bodies home. So I'm going to play a bit of his speech from yesterday. A lot happened yesterday. It was kind of a whirlwind of a day. And I'm just going to walk you through it because we didn't cover that yesterday. We did a Christopher Columbus special. So this is Donald Trump, a little portion of his speech.
This is the day that people across the region and around the world have been working, striving, hoping, and praying for. They have done things over the last month that I think were really unthinkable. Nobody thought this could happen. With the historic agreement we've just signed, those prayers of millions have finally been answered. As you know, the hostages have been returned, and further work goes on having to do with the, sadly to say, bodies. Together we've achieved what everybody said was impossible. At long last, we have peace in the Middle East, and it's a very simple expression, peace in the Middle East, and we've heard it for many years, but nobody thought it could ever get there, and now we're there. I want to congratulate everybody sitting in these first few rows and standing behind me. I don't know why they chose to stand, but I promise I'll make it short, okay? We are not going to keep you standing for long. These are great leaders. After years of suffering and bloodshed, the war in Gaza is over. Humanitarian aid is now pouring in, including hundreds of truckloads of food, medical equipment, and other supplies, much of it paid for by people in this room. Civilians are returning to their homes. The hostages are reuniting. I mean, it's beautiful. I'm just watching it backstage. The level of love and sorrow, I've never seen anything like it.
Okay. So that was President Donald Trump. Like I said, whirlwind of the day. He's so right. Nobody thought that this was possible. Everybody said that this wasn't possible. This is a historic agreement. The world lost its faith in seeing this happen. We lost our faith, but he didn't. Mr. President, sir, you didn't. And for that, I am grateful. Now let's set the scene. Yesterday, whirlwind. Like I said, President Donald Trump, he signed this historic peace deal with Jerusalem. We watched the last of the hostages freed, and then he spoke before the Israeli Knesset, and he received standing ovation from these lawmakers. These lawmakers, by the way, who not so long ago were faced with annihilation. Okay, anytime there's war, you're a lawmaker, you're somebody in government, you are at risk of dying. Okay, when you're at war like this. So these lawmakers, of course, they started standing and clapping for President Donald Trump at the Israeli Knesset. They started clapping. And then there was this really incredible moment. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he nominated President Donald Trump to receive the Israel Prize. This is the nation's highest civilian honor. This is their highest honor. And that's right, Donald Trump, the same Donald Trump who the liberal media has called a threat to democracy, just became a hero of peace in the most war-torn region on earth. Okay, Orange Man bad. Imagine that. He's actually Trump the peacemaker. I mean, you couldn't script it better if you tried. He's Orange Man bad. Oh, actually, he's Donald Trump the peacemaker. So after that, he was in Israel, and then after that, he went to Egypt, where he was greeted by world leaders. They applauded him, and the Egyptian president awarded him the highest honor that anybody in Egypt could receive. This is the Order of the Nile. This is him thanking the president for that honor, or for that award. Take a listen. Here we go.
We make the greatest military equipment in the world. We have the strongest military in the world by far. And I knew exactly what those planes were, and I knew exactly how much you paid for those planes, too. You paid a lot, but you got a pretty good deal. And they are great planes, and we just appreciate it. That was quite an escort in. It was very impressive. But Air Force One was really, it was covered with Egyptian desert just a few months ago. If you think about it, just a few months ago it was Egyptian desert, and now it was just a few feet off our window. And it was a spectacular sight, and I appreciate it very much. Really, that was pretty good. You got our people by surprise. I don't know if they were thrilled right at the beginning, but they were thrilled as we sailed along very, very calmly and safely. And I'm deeply honored to receive from you, Egypt's highest state honor, the Order of the Nile. The Nile is so beautiful, so magnificent. It's such a beautiful title, the Order of the Nile. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Appreciate it. Great honor.
Wow. That's incredible. And I want to pause here and talk about Barack Obama. Remember him? Okay, he started wars in the Middle East, and then he got a Nobel Peace Prize. Donald Trump ends war and gets peace itself. And I don't know if he's going to get a Nobel Peace Prize. I hope he does. But there's a big difference between Barack Obama and President Donald Trump. Obama said, hope and change. I'm going to bring about hope and change. But actually, he delivered drone strikes in division. Donald Trump said America first, and somehow he managed to bring peace abroad, too. So the irony here is that the press called Donald Trump the great divider. Today, you've got the Jewish people, the Arabs. They are secular leaders of the region, all standing behind him. They are all standing in one room, clapping for one man. And they dismissed this guy. They dismissed President Donald Trump as a Twitter troll. You've got everybody in this room. These are people who don't, the Egyptian president, the Jewish president, like they're not friends, the Arabs, like all those people, probably all not very close to each other, these leaders, but they're all standing behind him and standing and clapping for him. And you can't make this stuff up. Trump stood before a crowd in Egypt and said, together we have achieved what everybody said was impossible. At last, we have peace in the Middle East. He said that the hostages have returned, civilians are returning home, and it's a level of love and sorrow I've never seen anything like it. And you could feel the emotion in Donald Trump's voice. He wasn't talking like a politician reading from a teleprompter. No. He was talking like a man who had just witnessed mothers, and I'm sure you've seen the clips circulating, mothers hugging their children for the first time in years. This has been going on for 3 years about, and that's the difference between leadership and legacy. This is going to go down in history as one of the most miraculous deals, I think, ever. So the globalists, they talk about peace all the time and peace processes, and then they get up there at their UN conferences and talk about peace, but Trump actually delivered it. Okay, and Christians everywhere know exactly what it looks like when a man who everybody says that he's not enough, right? I think about King David. David, everybody said he was a shepherd boy. He'd never amount to anything. And when the impossible becomes possible for a man who, by all appearances and by what everybody said, wasn't capable of doing it. So he refused to bow to man, and Donald Trump refused to bow down to men, and he did what God called him to do. I really do believe that. I want to pull this back and look at this through a biblical lens. So Israel has always been the center of prophecy, promise, and persecution. From Abraham's covenant to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, the land of Israel has carried the weight of heaven and hell's battle. And here we are in our lifetime watching peace unfold that echoes the words of Psalm 122, verse 6. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. They shall prosper that love thee. Now, I'm not saying this is final peace that Scripture speaks of, because that's only when Christ comes back. Okay, he can bring that. But I am saying that God can use somebody who, we're told will never amount to anything, is a Twitter troll, is a divider, and he was a man from New York. He's loud. He's kind of got this stubborn streak, and he accomplished what the elites said couldn't be done. And this just shows us that God can use anyone he chooses. And, I think that this is divine. And you look at the politics of this, the swamp is already bubbling. Their heads are exploding and their faces are turning red and they're screaming at the sky. And, they need to drink some milk to calm down, I think. But the Democrats are furious that this happened under President Donald Trump's watch. They wanted chaos in the Middle East, folks, because they want to keep funding the defense industry and justifying these think tank grants. Peace doesn't pay as well as war, folks. And Trump, he pulled out the rug from all of these people. Lindsey Graham, the Democrats, Republicans and Democrats alike, he pulled out the rug from under them, all of them. The entire foreign policy establishment. He pulled out the rug from under them. And yesterday we talked about Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus was hated by the indigenous people or leaders. Not all of the indigenous people. They really liked that Christopher Columbus was converting them because they didn't want to perform human sacrifices and scalp each other anymore. But Christopher Columbus was hated by his own men. And, I think it's interesting, Donald Trump and Christopher Columbus, they kind of have parallels here where they're hated by both sides. He's hated by, I'm sure, people like Lindsey Graham, who is a war hawk and has never met a missile strike he didn't love. Okay, I'm sure he's already out there saying, oh, we've got to monitor the peace carefully. Yeah, Lindsey, I bet you want to monitor it carefully because you're wondering when the next conflict is going to happen. And that'll give you an opportunity to get on TV, to get your next TV appearance booked, and to line your pockets with the defense industry and with the grants to the think tanks and the nonprofit organizations. And then you get the kickbacks, right? So the Americans, people, we are watching a man of peace, not a man of profit, stand on a world stage and say, it's over. That's leadership, and it's America first. And what does this mean going forward? So with the war in Gaza over, humanitarian aid is flowing, and this is what is so crucial. And this is why people don't want the war to end. Your establishment, your foreign policy establishment, your Democrats, your Republicans, because what they'll do, they'll funnel tax dollars into NGOs, and then those NGOs will provide humanitarian aid. And then in turn, the NGOs thank the politicians for funneling the taxpayer dollars in by funneling money right back into their campaign coffers. That's kind of how that works. So what's incredible about this deal, the deal that Donald Trump had brokered here, there's humanitarian aid still flowing, to rebuild, right? Everything is destroyed. War does that. But it's not the corrupt NGOs that are providing the humanitarian aid. Actually, through this deal, from what I understand, the supplies and the humanitarian aid, they are actually coming from the nations that were at odds with each other. So funded by the very nations that were once at odds with each other. So they're going to be providing each other with humanitarian aid. It's very amazing that this is going on because Donald Trump shut off the taxpayer dollars being funneled into these corrupt NGOs who don't even really provide the humanitarian aid. They probably pocket 90% of it, and they might, send out a case of water or some bottled waters, but they pocket 90% of it, and then they pay their friends. It's all money laundering. It's disgusting. But Donald Trump brokered a deal where that crap can't go on. And actually, the nations are going to be providing the humanitarian aid to the civilians themselves. So it's accountability. It's holding them accountable. Okay, you guys destroyed each other. Now you guys have to help each other build each other back up. It's a beautiful deal. So the civilians, they're returning home. The rebuilding is going to be having to happen. There's going to be churches and temples reopening. And for once, the Middle East is not going to be this war headline. Okay. It's going to be a hope headline. And there's going to be headlines coming out that, oh, this temple was rebuilt and this hospital was rebuilt. And even Muslim leaders at this point are calling it a miracle. So meanwhile, back in America, you're going to have our press say that they can't stand this. And they're going to find some way to spin this world peace into a negative headline. And they've already done it. And I'll get to that a little bit later. I'm just pulling one from this morning. Here's what CNN has. Trump takes credit for peace. Critics say he's self-centered. Nice. Like, yeah, what a great headline. There's world peace. There's the Middle East, the steel. I mean, one of the most war-torn regions on Earth. And they come up with this headline. Trump takes credit for peace. Critics say he's self-centered. Yeah, because it's so selfish to stop rockets from killing children. It's so selfish, egotistical, really, to end war. God, what a jackwagon Donald Trump is. How dare he end the war? Give me a break, CNN. So what can we take from this moment, my friends? We can take that faith, persistence, and courage can conquer any kind of criticism or cynicism. And all of that came and was thrown at President Donald Trump, twice impeached, indicted, convicted. And he really reminds me of David. Everybody's like, oh, that shepherd boy, he can't do anything. He's too small, right? Winds up becoming the king of Israel, the best. So America still matters. And when we lead with conviction and we do it without apology, you get peace. When you put God first and America first, the rest of the world will follow. And Trump said it the best yesterday. He said, this is the day the people across the region and around the world have been working for, striving for, hoping for, and praying for. Yes, he's right. And maybe, just maybe, this is a glimpse of what happens when men stop bowing down to the false gods of political correctness and stop bowing down to the false god of money and greed, and they start listening to that small voice in their head. Blessed are the peacemakers. So today, whether you love him or hate him, remember this: Donald Trump just made history, and this is real, tangible peace. And I'm excited. So I want to get to CNN because this is hilarious. They had an anchor who humiliated herself, and she actually had to come out and apologize. But Donald Trump, the man the media mocked for years as chaotic, unhinged, dangerous, a threat to democracy, dangerous to global stability, he just pulled off one of the most remarkable foreign policy deals and efforts in modern history. It's the Israel-Hamas Peace Deal. So the hostages have been released, the guns have been quieted, the families have been united, lives have been saved. And what does our American media do? How do they react? Did CNN break down in tears, of joy for the hostages who came home? Did they praise God for peace? Did they admit that maybe, just maybe, President Donald Trump was right and he did something good? Nope. Christine, I think is her name, Amanpour. She is a host, the longtime chief international scolder. She told the world that the Hamas hostages were probably treated better than the average Gazan citizen. And I want you to let that sink in. Okay, this is a woman who has spent her career reporting on war, and she just told millions of viewers that people chained, and they were starved, they were tortured, they had to dig their own graves for their loved ones and for their fellow Jewish brethren. She said that they were treated better than the Gazan citizens. Okay. And if that doesn't tell you where the modern media's moral compass points, nothing will. Okay. That just tells you what you need to know about the modern American media. So let's pause and look at what happened before the CNN host opened her mouth. Amanpour is her name. 20 hostages, the last living hostages. I want to be clear. Donald Trump said that the last thing that they've got to do is bring the bodies home. These are the last living hostages. A lot of them died, and then the hostages were forced to bury them. They were released they were released after 2 years of over 2 years of brutal Hamas captivity. Okay, Trump's diplomatic team, working with Israel and Egyptian intermediaries, crafted a deal and achieved the impossible, freed the innocent lives without selling out Israel's right to exist, okay, or surrendering to terrorism. Israel still exists as a Jewish state. So they didn't have to give up Israel's right to exist. They didn't have to do any land deals or broker any kind of land deals or anything like that, which, by the way, Israel over the years have gone down from a sliver. And from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That was calling for the elimination of Israel as a Jewish state. Okay, that slogan. It's already through multiple land deals, one actually under Barack Obama. Their boundaries has been chipped away. And if you don't believe me, there's like 300 million Arabs or something like that, and there's like 12 million Jews. Not only has their boundaries, like their physical boundaries of their country, shrunk, but their population has shrunk. And who brokered this deal? Jared Kushner, Jason Greenblatt, David Friedman. This is actually the same crew. And I want to point this out, the Abraham Accords. You guys know what this is. These were peace agreements that connected Israel with Arab nations, the UAE, Bahrain, and Morocco. Okay. So this was a peace agreement in 2020. Now, there was peace in the Middle East prior to 2025 under the Trump administration. Then Joe Biden got in, and guess what happened? Okay, what was it, October 7th? They felt so emboldened, Hamas, to commit really just human atrocities that day, parachuting, raping women, killing women. It was truly tragic, and the war started because Israel was defending themselves, and it's been going on for the last 2 years. So remembers what the experts said back then about the Abraham Accords. I want to be clear about this because even back then in 2020, Donald Trump wasn't given the credit he deserved for bringing about peace in the Middle East. Had it not been for Joe Biden, none of these people would have died. Palestine would have been free. Gaza would have been, the Gaza citizens would have never died. Civilians would have never died. Had it not been for Joe Biden's presidency. Had President Donald Trump won, then we would have been fine. But that didn't happen because the election was stolen. Sorry. The experts back then, when the Abraham Accords were signed and those appeasement agreements were signed and brokered, they said, it's impossible. It'll never last. Trump is destabilizing the region. They were wrong then, and they're going to be wrong now, because you're going to hear a lot of these experts come out and say things like, oh, well, this isn't going to last. We have to monitor this peace because it's probably not going to last. And actually what he's doing is destabilizing the region. No. They were wrong then. They're wrong now. Peace through strength works. Okay, peace through appeasement never works. And that's exactly what Obama did with this Iran deal. Actually, back then, it was probably attributed, a lot of people attribute Joe Biden giving billions of dollars. I think it was 6 something billion. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but he gave money to Iran, and subsequently Hamas was emboldened to conduct the terrorist attack on October 7th. Okay, now you can go back to Obama's Iran deal, and that was peace through appeasement. He gave them cash on pallets. Okay, he delivered them pallets of cash, Barack Obama. And Joe Biden's endless aid to Gaza, none of that actually achieves peace. You have to achieve peace through strength. And earlier in the show, I told you about how President Donald Trump, he's not providing humanitarian aid through these corrupt NGOs, these nonprofit organizations, and allowing politicians to get rich quick. No. He's holding these nations accountable. He said, you guys broke it all down. You guys bombed each other. You destroyed all of this. You guys are going to help each other build it back up. That is peace through strength. That is an incredible deal. And now I want to take a look at CNN's reaction to all of it. Okay, because while families in Israel wept tears of joy, they were weeping. And I can show some of the videos here. CNN wept tears of regret. Okay, not because the hostages suffered and that, oh, it's so tragic that the hostages were there in the first place. They weren't crying because of that. No, they were crying because Hamas supposedly lost its leverage. These people are sick. Amanpour, Christine Amanpour, she was live and on air, and she said, quote, they probably were being treated better than the average Gazan because they were pawns and chips that Hamas had. Wow. Let me translate what this CNN host actually said. And let me translate that for you. Hamas, these poor, misunderstood freedom fighters, they lost their bargaining power, and that's a real shame. That's what I think she's really saying. And this is the same woman, CNN, and I'm going to play her apology clip here because she was forced to apologize. She has spent decades painting America and Israel as villains, and Iran, her ancestral homeland. She has painted them as the victims. Okay, and she's the kind of journalist who calls these radical Islamist terrorists reformers. Okay, but she will call President Donald Trump a danger to democracy. So she would lecture Israel's disproportionate response, but she'd never lecture Hamas for launching missiles from hospitals and hiding behind hospitals. Okay, that's the way terrorists, radical Islamists, that's the way they fight war. They set up military bases in hospitals, and of course, Israel bombed these hospitals because that's where their military base was. But these Hamas terrorists hide behind those, and then they can flip the narrative around these Hamas terrorists and say, "Oh, look, see, Israel, they bombed our hospitals." Like, okay, but we had no choice to, because that's where your military base is. You're hiding behind sick children, and you're wounded. You're hiding behind them. And yeah, so Hamas, she never lectures them. That's the type of woman this is. She will lecture Israel on their disproportionate response. And that's not journalism. Okay, that's propaganda. And I want to play this clip of her regret. Okay, because after backlash, of course, from her comments about how the Israeli hostages were probably treated better than Gazans because they were bargaining chips. She had to issue an apology. And if you listen carefully, I don't think that this was about repentance of any kind. I think it was damage control. So let's actually take a listen to it together. Truly disgusting stuff. Here we go.
Now, earlier live on air, I spoke about what a day of real joy this is for Israeli families whose loved ones are finally being returned from 2 years of horrific Hamas captivity, and for civilians in Gaza who finally had a reprieve from 2 years of brutal and deadly war. I noted that for the hostages who are finally home, it'll take a long time for them to recover mentally and physically. But I regret also saying that they might have been treated better than many Gazans because Hamas used these hostages as pawns and bargaining chips. But that was insensitive and it was wrong. From speaking to many former hostages and their families, like everyone, I've been horrified at what Hamas has subjected them to over 2 long years. They've told me, as you've just heard, their stories of barely being able to breathe in the tunnels, not being allowed to cry, being starved and made to dig their own graves. And of course, today, some of the hostages are coming back in body bags. Now, earlier live on air, I spoke about what a day of real joy this.
Okay. So that was not, I don't think that this was a true apology, folks. I don't think that this was actual repentance. She says, quote, "It was insensitive and wrong from speaking to many former hostages. I've been horrified at what Hamas subjected them to." But folks, I don't think that was conviction. I don't think that was actual repentance. I think that she was reading from a teleprompter. And actually, Rich Grenell, who was the former U.S. ambassador to Germany under President Donald Trump, he actually heard, apparently, and I'm going to share this X post with you, he heard that CNN made her do it. Okay, so there it is. That the higher-ups made her do it. Of course they did. CNN knows their reputation is sinking faster than Biden's approval ratings or Kamala Harris's approval ratings. They know that they are not very popular, and they couldn't afford to let this Amanpour, Christine Amanpour's mask slip that far. And they couldn't afford to show the viewers who they really are. But here's the truth. Okay. What she said the first time, I think that's truly what she believes. She believes that the hostages were treated better than the Gazans. She believes that Israel was the aggressor. She believes America should bow before international consensus instead of standing on biblical principle. And that, my friends, is the root of modern journalism. It is the rotten root of modern journalism. They've got no backbone. They, will get out there and issue apologies when they say the truth or what they truly believe. And they masquerade as these big compassionate, people, or these compassionate elitists, and they're just not compassionate at all. That is the most disgusting thing I think anybody could have said in this moment when the hostages were coming home, that they were actually treated fine because they were chips or they were pawns, for Hamas, and they were probably treated better. And Amanpour, the CNN host here, said that Hamas lost its leverage. Let me tell you, leverage is when you have God on your side. Okay, leverage is when you fight for life, not death. Leverage is when you build hospitals, not launch rockets from them. Remember, I told you about how Hamas would hide behind these hospitals, launch rockets from them, and then Israel would be, their hands are tied. Hey, we have to bomb these hospitals. Not saying that Israel is perfect or the Israeli government is perfect by any means. Remember when Donald Trump, they don't know what the F they're doing. So they're not perfect by any means, but leverage is when you bring hostages home, not take them. Okay, Trump's peace deal was leverage for good. Okay, it showed the world that America doesn't have to bow to terror or bureaucracy. We can lead with principle. I like how Bob says this. Trump basically blew up Iran. Yeah, we remember that. And Iran isn't funneling money to Hamas now, and they can't fight without money for weapons. Yeah, exactly. They have this peace deal, and I think it's a good one. He's kind of forcing them both to provide humanitarian aid to each other. But at the end of the day, I think what really ended it was this Iran blowing up. blowing up their nukes. Okay, nobody was hurt. It was their nuclear arsenal, or where they were creating nuclear weapons. And Donald Trump with the B-2 bombers went in and blew them all up this year. And, that's a lot of money. And they don't have it anymore to funnel it to Hamas. And I told you about how Joe Biden funneled a bunch of money to Iran. And subsequently, shortly thereafter, Hamas conducted this terrorist attack, on October 7th. And then prior to that, Barack Obama, pallets of cash to Iran. And we know what happened during Barack Obama's administration in the Middle East, complete chaos. So Israel, let's not just, forget this either. They aren't just another country in the Middle East. It is the birthplace of our faith's story. I've talked about this before. Jewish people and Christian people, they serve the same God, Yahweh. And then there's a different God or idea of God that the Islamists worship, and that's Allah. So this nation is the nation through which God's promises were written and fulfilled. This nation is very important, and Donald Trump understands that. And a lot of people on the far right don't agree with this, or non-Zionist Christians. I'm a Zionist Christian. I believe all Zionism really is that Israel should exist as a Jewish state. And America should stand with Israel. We're not choosing sides in a geopolitical chess match here. We're standing on the same side that God, who told Abraham, hey, I will bless those who bless you. We're standing on that side of it all. And Donald Trump managed to do that, but also give the Arabs a fair shake. The Islamists a fair shake, in this deal. So that's hard to do, being that it's very clear that America stands with Israel. We are a nation that stands with the God of Yahweh, the Judeo-Christian God, and we stand with the God of Abraham, or the God who told Abraham, hey, those who bless you, Israel, and your descendants, really Abraham and his descendants, I will bless them. So I want to zoom out. I don't know why the media is so allergic to Trump's success. Why is it every peace deal, every victory, every hostage returned gets buried under this bitter commentary like we just saw with the CNN host? Why is that? Because the corporate press, CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, they need chaos. They thrive on war. They thrive on division. Why? Because the politicians thrive on it. We talked about the NGOs funneling taxpayer dollars into these NGOs who provide the humanitarian aid, and then in turn, they, maybe use 10% of the taxpayer dollars to actually provide the humanitarian aid. They store the rest of it, and then they give a kickback to the politicians who secured the taxpayer dollars for them. And they all pay themselves, and then they pay the politicians back. So the media, they thrive on war and division and despair because the politicians thrive on it. The military industrial complex, the defense industry, the Lindsey Grahams, they love war because war makes them money. And peace here doesn't sell commercials. That's why the media is all about, this bitter commentary and not celebrating the victories and celebrating the peace. Peace doesn't sell the commercials. Peace also doesn't get them in good with the politicians because the politicians buy off the media, right? I've seen it happen, and it's just very simple. I mean, I wish it was more elaborate than this, but the politicians, what they do, they invite the media to these parties, and there's drinking that happens, and they feel very special, and they feel like they're in the club. when the politicians invite them. They'd stop inviting them if the media actually did their job. They'd stop making the media feel like elitists if the media actually did their job and advocated for things like peace and hostages being returned and didn't just doom and gloom all the time. If they were pro-America, they won't get invited to these parties anymore and won't be in. And a lot of these media people, they move on to, campaign jobs or bureaucracy, some sort of government agency. They're hoping that they can get in with a politician, and this politician will bring them on as a staffer or as a communications director. And they will not report negatively on these politicians who advocate for war simply so they can line their pockets. Okay, they'd rather run stories about Trump's chaos, and they'd rather run those stories than show the clips of the mothers hugging their freed children after years. So let's be clear. This peace deal did not just happen. It took guts. It took moral clarity. I think that it took faith, something bigger than politics. I think that Trump was called by God to do exactly this, and it all kind of started here with blowing up Iran. Well, their arsenal there, where their weapons were stored, with the B-2 bombers. I think that he really had to listen to the voice of God. Trump, for whatever you think about his tweets, he knows the difference between right and wrong, and he's got an ear with the Holy Spirit. I really do think so. I think that he's listening, and he knows the difference between terrorists and freedom fighters. He knows the difference between victims and villains, and that's why CNN hates him, because he doesn't play into their relativist game where both sides are equally guilty. He calls evil evil, and he knows that's something that the media can't stand. Somebody who has conviction and understands, hey, there's right and wrong and there's good and evil, and I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to do what God tells me to do. So let's talk about Hamas now, because this CNN host, Christine Amanpour, seems a bit confused about who Hamas is. They are not a freedom movement. They aren't even really a political party. Okay, this is a terrorist organization, one that thrives on human suffering, especially the suffering of its own people. They hide behind women and children. They used hospitals during this war as military bases. They stole humanitarian, sold it on the black market. Yes, that happened. And when Israel decides to defend itself, they call it genocide. There's genocide going on in Palestine, or the Gaza genocide, and that's the oldest trick in the terrorist playbook. Okay, provoke and then play victim. And CNN falls for it every single time, but I know you don't, we don't. We see right through it, and we know what truth looks like, and Donald Trump knows what truth looks like. And in Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20, it says this: "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness." And really, that's what this Christine Amanpour, the CNN host, did. She called captivity better treatment. And she called Hamas strategic, okay, that they were strategically using the hostages for leverage in this war, and that the hostages were treated better than the Gazans. And she called peace a loss of leverage. Okay, really, I think in order to best I'm going to translate her. I think that her original comments, what she was saying was that she was disappointed that Hamas lost their hostages, because that gave up their leverage. And that's not just wrong, but it's just evil turned inside out. And I mean, I'm kind of grateful for the half-ass apology, but we know that CNN directed her to do it, as Richard Grenell had tweeted. He, provided some evidence of that, of CNN. He said that, hey, somebody has told me that CNN forced her to do this. So where do we go from here? We should celebrate. The people, I know the media won't, we should celebrate peace. We should thank God for the hostages coming home. We should recognize that strength, not surrender, much like the Biden administration and Obama did. They surrendered. They, in fact, provided all kinds of money to Iran, which emboldened them to give that to terrorist organizations, various terrorist organizations. And then they became emboldened to provoke war. And then after provoking war, they acted like they were victims. Okay, these terrorist organizations, because that's the oldest trick in the terrorist playbook. Real peace is achieved through strength. And we have to pray for journalism and for these journalists to rediscover truth over narrative and to not prioritize greed. Okay, they are serving at the feet of a false god, and that false god is greed. Because these media people, they all want politicians to name them communications directors and to serve on the staffs of these politicians. And they just want to feel important. And, you're famous in your father's eyes. I wish I could tell that to these journalists on CNN. You're famous in your father's eyes. You don't need to seek fame. You don't have to be buddy-buddy with politicians who want war so that way they can line their pockets. Just tell the truth. And the truth will set you free. Right? So until then, let's call this what it is. It's victory for Israel. It's victory for peace, victory for America under strong leadership. And we can even say, yes, the humiliating defeat of these professional pessimists at CNN is something to be celebrated. She was humiliated. Christine Amanpour. She looked pretty sad on camera there. I don't know what you guys think, but her looking sad on camera is actually a pretty good sign. Her being humiliated and having to apologize, that tells me that we're going into a direction where, hey, CNN realizes that, hey, we can't let the mask slip too far because people don't agree with us anymore. People don't like us anymore. And our ratings are dropping very, very fast. And if we let that mask slip anymore, we're going to be totally irrelevant. So this is something to be celebrated too, that, hey, we're in a time period where CNN will apologize. We're in a time period where ABC will temporarily suspend, even if it wasn't a full suspension or firing of Jimmy Kimmel. We're living in a time period where they're apologizing. So let's close with this thought, and then I want to move on. The peace that came this week wasn't brokered by bureaucrats. I want to be very, very clear. This was secured by conviction, by people who believe that evil can be defeated. Donald Trump, I truly believe that he knows that evil can be defeated and that truth matters and that God is not done with his people in Israel. And as long as America stands with Israel, as long as we call evil by its name and good by and we call evil by its name and good by its name, we will remain a blessed nation. And, that's in the Bible. Those who bless you will be blessed. So I'm going to take a quick break, but we're going to come back and I want to talk about Illinois' failing grade. So Truth in Accounting, they actually gave Illinois an F grade for its financial health. And I want to kind of talk about how Governor J.B. Pritzker will get out there and say, oh, the budget is balanced, or, oh, we have a high credit rating. And I know that you don't know what to say when he comes out and says that, or leftists come out and say, actually, we have a high credit rating under Governor J.B. Pritzker. Actually, we have a balanced budget. And I know you don't know how to fight that. And I want to equip you with the tools to fight your leftist friends intellectually and through debate, not actually. Um, I want to give you the tools to equip you to fight your leftist friends intellectually about this, the financial state of Illinois, because it's not good. Boiling Point Live, I'm so glad you're here. Guys, go follow them on X. They're also on Rumble. They've got a ton of hosts, including my good friend Ryan McKinsey. They're here this morning. Appreciate it. At BPL on X. At Real BPL on X. I threw that up in the comments section. Luke 6:45. I'll pull that up and read it on the other side. I'm not good at reciting scripture, but I will pull that up on the other side. We got to take a quick break, but I'll be back.
Sometimes God stops you cold, not with a whisper, with a punch to the soul. Saul wasn't looking for Jesus. He was hunting Christians. He had power, position, and a mission. Then God knocked him to the dirt, a light from heaven, a voice that knew his name. Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? That moment wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was a spiritual ambush. God still works like that. He steps into your mess, interrupts your pride, confronts the man you've become when you're wandered too far. Maybe you're building your own kingdom. Maybe your fists are up, fighting battles God never called you to. Or maybe you're just running hard in the wrong direction. But then comes the voice, clear, heavy, holy. Why are you persecuting me? Jesus doesn't want your behavior fixed. He wants your heart surrendered. Saul didn't get a lecture. He got a mission. Get up, go to the city. You'll be told what to do. That's the way of real manhood in the kingdom. Surrender first, then orders. You don't need every answer right now. You need to obey the voice. Follow the light. Rise up off the dirt and walk the road God lays out for you. Some roads break you to rebuild you, and that's exactly what Jesus wants. You want to train like a warrior? You need fuel like one. Patriot Pump is clean, powerful pre-workout that won't let you quit halfway. Just like the mission God gives you, it's not about the hype. It's about the grit. Fuel up, lock in, get after it.
Hey, go ahead and smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I was just looking up Luke chapter 6, verse 45, and it states, a good person brings about good things, brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil person brings evil things out of the evil things stored up in his heart. Wow, that is some good scripture there, and you're exactly right. As long as we keep the main thing, God, and take his words literally, those who bless you will be blessed, and he said this to Abraham. And who's you? Those who bless you, Israel or your descendants. Okay, Abraham, those who bless your descendants, the Jewish people, will be blessed. Okay, and we are a blessed nation because we've always stood with Israel. And as long as we continue to call evil by its name, and not say Hamas is freedom fighters, okay, and be all upset when Hamas loses its leverage, i.e. its hostages. CNN host seemed upset that the hostages were released because, oh no, Hamas lost their leverage. What? Actually, the hostages were treated better than the Gazans. I mean, to an extent, maybe, I don't know. I mean, the hostages were jailed. They were forced to bury each other when they died. They were starved. They were tortured. That is awful. The Gazans are also treated poorly, not by the Israelis, but by their own leaders, their political leaders, the Hamas terrorists. They actually hid behind women and children in hospitals and used them as military bases. And use them as justification to go after Israel, because Israel had no choice but to bomb some of these hospitals because they were launching missiles from them. And that's not treating your people very good. I don't know about you, but requiring women to wear, uh, burqas and not show any kind of skin whatsoever, and then beating them when they do, I don't know if that's necessarily treating the Gazans correctly, okay? Or raping them, or marrying them at the age of 12, child marriage. I don't think that's really treating the Gazan people great. And it's not the Israelis who are doing that to them, it's Hamas. So, yeah. I want to talk about Truth in Accounting now. Truth in Accounting, they gave Illinois an F grade for its financial health. And I know a lot of you get really confused, or your eyes start to glaze over when Pritzker talks about the balanced budget, or we have the highest credit ratings, in the nation, or we've gotten all kinds of credit upgrades. Now, F is for failed, flunked, financially fried. Okay, that is what F stands for. And the group's founder, Sheila Weinberg, and she's quoted in the Center Square, she didn't sugarcoat it. She said, Illinois politicians from Governor J.B. Pritzker to the long line of people who preceded Governor J.B. Pritzker. There is a long line of them who have been cooking the books, and they've been doing what she calls, quote, political math. Okay, so let me translate for that for the folks at home. Political math means pretending your bank account is full while actually maxing out your credit cards and pawning off your kids' future. Okay, so we are not financially sound. And every year the governor gets up there and says, in front of the cameras with a grin on his face, and he says, we balance the budget, or our credit ratings are higher than they've ever been. Okay, no, Governor, you didn't balance anything. You just buried the evidence. Okay, so let me put this in plain English. According to the Truth in Accounting Financial State of the State report, you guys can go find it on your own. Every taxpayer in Illinois now carries an average burden of $38,000, over $38,800. Okay, that's a lot of taxes. So take what you make. Say you make $70,000 a year or something like that. Half of that is gone in taxes. Okay, this is the average burden. That's your share, and that's what you're supposed to give that's your tax burden. Okay, that's not your mortgage. You don't get anything really out of this. I don't know about you, but I don't interact with government on a daily basis. They don't give me anything. Really, even when I go to the DMV, which is all I really need them, they force me to go there because of all the regulations, but they don't give me anything, right? So they take all of this money from me, but yet I don't get anything in return. Okay, so the taxpayer, you are the credit card, the cosigner for the politicians who have been lying to you for decades. Okay, you, the taxpayer, are the credit card, the cosigner for the politicians who have been lying to you for decades. Illinois ranks 48th in the entire nation for total fiscal health. Okay, only Connecticut and New Jersey are the worst. Okay, 59th or 49th and 50th. And that sucks. Sheila Weinberg from Truth in Accounting said it perfectly. They use political math and pretend that their budget is balanced while they are putting the state in debt. Right. So this deception really hurts because people hear balanced budget and they think, oh, maybe it's better. Maybe it's good. Maybe this is a state to live in. Okay. But it's completely false. It gives people a false sense of the true financial condition of government, and it doesn't give voters a clear picture. Okay, we need to know the true financial state of Illinois so that way we can elect people who are going to change it and make it better. So they claim that surpluses exist, but they don't really exist because we have a mountain of debt, and the elephant in the room is our pension debt. Okay. They borrow to cover shortfalls, and then they delay bills so they don't show up until the next fiscal year. And that's not budgeting, that's being a con artist. Okay. They borrow to cover up their shortfalls. And then it's kind of like taking out, like in your own financial health, it's kind of like taking out a loan to pay off your debt, right? And to cover those shortfalls. And it's kind of like calling the loan officer, hey, we got to delay this bill until next year. And then they claim like, oh, well, we have all this surplus because they delay these bills. And then because they're claiming the surplus it looks like we're in a fantastic financial condition, and we're just not. Okay, so I got to talk about the elephant in the room. That's the pensions. Illinois has the worst pension funding ratio in the nation, according to Truth in Accounting. The state only has 43 cents saved for every dollar that's promised to retirees. That's 43 cents. Okay. That's like promising your kids college tuition, saving lunch money, and calling it handled. Okay. You're saving like, enough to provide lunch for them while they're at college, but you're not saving enough money for their actual college tuition. Weinberg said that Illinois underfunds its pensions by $5 to $6 billion every single year. Billion. And last I checked it, I think it's like 150 billion or something like that. And it gets worse because not only that, the 150 billion in pension debt, but they have 21.7 billion in retiree health care benefits that they haven't paid. Okay. And the state Supreme Court, the Illinois Supreme Court, says that those benefits are constitutionally protected and guaranteed. Okay. So you have to give them the health care. Okay. Because the Supreme Court said so. And Illinois hasn't put a single dime towards them. Okay. The health care benefits. So the state keeps making promises that it can't keep. You promise these public sector workers the health care, and you're not actually paying them the health care benefits. Okay. You're $21.7 billion behind, actually. So the state keeps making promises it can't keep and it can't afford. And the people are holding the bag, and the politicians aren't, because the politicians aren't generating any kind of money. They are taking it from you. And when the bill comes due, it won't be paid. Okay. They're not paying their bills, the pension bills. They're passing it on to the next fiscal year. And the Springfield politicians don't pay it. You do, because again, government doesn't make money. They take money from you. And you already can't afford your groceries, your gas, and your property taxes. Okay. So I don't know where they think this money's coming from, because you've taxed us so hard. There's no money left. I don't know who you're taxing, because there's no money left from us. You've squeezed us dry. You've milked us. Okay. So here's where it turns from financial negligence to just straight up corruption. So the financial reports, they're supposed to be issued every single fiscal year. And the financial report for 2023, the one that tells taxpayers how their money's being spent, it was released 769 days late. So we're in 2025. At this point, I think we should have the fiscal report for 2024. That hasn't been released. And then the 2023 report was released 769 days late. Okay, that's more than 2 years. So, that's just straight up corruption. They're not releasing the money reports showing you how your money is being actually spent, showing you the financial condition of the government. They're not being transparent about that, and they're supposed to release these reports. So imagine if you told the IRS, like, oh, sorry, I can't pay my taxes. It's going to be a couple of years late. But don't worry, I balanced my checkbook and we're all good. Yeah, you'd be in handcuffs. The IRS would come and arrest you. But for the politicians, this is just another Tuesday, right? To not release something that they're required by law to release. and they release it 769 days late. Okay, that's where it's not financial negligence. And I could just say, the people who've been running the show here are just stupid, and they've been stupid, and they're just financially negligent. Your Bruce Rowners, your Pat Quinns, your Governor J.B. Pritzkers, everybody up to this point. I wish I could say that they were just financially negligent. And it's not, I'm not going to put it all at the feet of JB. This has been years in the making. But JB has ballooned the budget from $30 billion to 50 something billion dollars. So he's very much to blame here. The spending. Okay. He's ballooned that spending by a whole lot, $20 billion. Okay. So, I wish I could say that it's just financial negligence and that these people are stupid, but when you don't release your fiscal reports for 2 years, over 2 years, and you're required by law to do so, that's called corruption. Okay. And Weinberg, she is with Truth in Accounting. This is a nonprofit organization. They released the state of the state financial report. And she said taxpayers don't have the information they need to hold elected officials accountable. That's the whole point. You keep the voters in the dark. You don't release your fiscal reports. You delay the truth long enough until the next election comes and goes, because they don't want the people to realize, well, they've really put us in the hole here. They don't want the people to realize that, because then they might actually wake up and start voting these people out. When the lights finally come on, it's too late. Okay, the deals have been done. The debt is already locked in. And Illinois isn't broke by accident. It's designed to stay that way. Politicians who learned long ago that if you lie with a smile, people won't look under the hood. Okay, they learned that a long time ago, and people don't look under the hood. And this stuff is really important. You have to know that you're $150 billion in debt. You have to know that JB ballooned the budget from $30 billion to $50 billion during his time in office. You have to know that we are $21.7 billion in healthcare for retirees, debt. And the state Supreme Court says that they are guaranteed that money, and they haven't even made attempts to pay that money to the public sector employees. Okay. And, I want to talk about dependency, because government dependency, they want you dependent on the government. During COVID, there was federal aid that the states got, and this was a lot of federal aid that they got from, I think it was like $750 billion in federal aid. To COVID times, it went up to $1.5 trillion dollars. And what Illinois did, they created all kinds of programs that weren't sustainable using this temporary money. And after the pandemic, and after the federal aid has kind of dropped back off, and Illinois isn't weaning itself off of the federal aid. Like they aren't cutting the programs that they created with the temporary money. And you have to cut those programs because it's not sustainable, and you're just going to keep going into more debt. So Weinberg, she says that the federal aid went back to pre-pandemic levels, and Illinois, if the federal aid went back to pre-pandemic levels, it's not quite there yet. Illinois would lose about $1.6 billion, roughly 15% of its core government spending. Okay, so let that sink in. They're losing their money that they're able to spend, and they're not cutting any spending, and they need that money right now as it currently is, because they're not cutting any of the programs that they have to spend money on. Okay, so the land of Lincoln has become the land of Washington handouts. So under the Biden administration, we had all kinds of federal handouts, and we're kind of relying on that. And that's not good because it's drying up. The federal aid is returning to pre-pandemic levels. Donald Trump isn't doing it anymore. And, this is not going to be good for our financial condition as a state. So what happens when the state gives up its economic freedom? And really, that's what they did. When you build your budget around federal cash, you stop serving the people and you start serving the DC masters. Okay. And that's what happened under Joe Biden. You get all these string attached DEI programs, climate mandates, woke education grants, because Washington pays the bills and they write the rules. That's not federalism, that's fiscal slavery. And we were kind of enslaved to the federal government under Joe Biden. And we had to do everything that the federal government wanted, including the DEI programs, the educational grants, or the woke educational. They'd give us educational grants in order to, and in order to get those educational grants, we had to do woke things in the classroom. Okay, that's why under the Biden administration, you saw things like the comprehensive sex education, and then all of a sudden, your kids' classrooms were full of books that directed children how to give BJs. Okay, I'm not kidding. I saw it. And you had to play by Washington's rules in order to get the money. And that is called fiscal slavery. And, it's so fascinating because you would think that Governor J.B. Pritzker would be anti-Biden administration because of, they kind of used the federal aid as something over our heads and as a hold us hostage to their ideology. You would think that President J.B. Pritzker would be against that sort of thing because it's called fiscal slavery and it's not actually serving the people. And there's strings attached to the federal aid. But no, he was all for it because they just happen to be of the same ideology, Joe Biden and Governor J.B. Pritzker. Now, the bond ratings, I want to talk about that because you've heard in the news, Illinois' credit rating is improving. Governor J.B. Pritzker says that all the time, right next to the balance or the budget is balanced. We've talked about how the budget is not balanced. They'll use federal aid dollars to kind of play this political math and say that the budget is balanced because of this federal aid, but the federal aid is drying up to pre-pandemic levels. They're not going to get that money anymore, and they create all these programs with that temporary money. It's unsustainable. Once that federal money dries up, we're going to lose what was it? I said 16%, 15%, roughly 15% of our core government spending. It's just not sustainable. I talked about the debt that they just every single year, they don't pay the bill and then they pass it on to the next fiscal year. And then they claim surpluses, but they take out loans in order to get those surpluses. Okay, so we've already established that the balanced budget thing is a total lie. Now I want to talk about the credit ratings. Because you'll hear in the news all the time, like Illinois has a great credit rate or it's improving the credit rating. And really it's improving from an A- to an A+, right? Like that's the level of improvement. And Weinberg, she actually explained this in the article, the Center Square. Credit ratings don't accurately measure financial health and the financial condition of the government. Why? Because the state has to and will make its bond payments because it's law. So Illinois pays those bonds because there's a state law that exists that says that they have to pay those bonds with the first dollar of tax revenue it collects. Okay, so they have to pay it. And the people can starve, the pensions can collapse, but those bonds, they will always be paid. And because there's a state law that forbids Illinois from paying anything else and they have to pay the bonds first, that actually boosts their credit rating. So that's not actually fiscal stability. Illinois' improved credit rating is a talking point. And bragging about your credit score when you're drowning in debt, okay, it's so stupid. Okay, and the only reason why your credit score is so high is because of this state law that forbids you from not paying your bond payment or paying your bonds. Okay, the loans you've taken out. So you're drowning in debt, but yet you're bragging about your credit rating. It's just insane. She actually has the perfect analogy here. Weinberg from Truth in Accounting. She says, quote, "It's like having hundreds of thousands of dollars of credit card debt and then deciding to put your money into savings instead of paying the minimum." So one thing that Illinois does, which is fascinating, is that they put all kinds of money in surpluses. And I've talked about this with the road fund. There's actually surplus there, and I use air quotes here, of like $3 million or something like that. And they don't actually pay off their debts. They keep things at surpluses to try to get them, more bonds or more loans to pay bills. But they don't actually pay the bills with the money that they get from the bonds. They just use that to pad up these funds, like the road fund, and then that makes their credit score go up. Okay, because they have all of these surpluses, but they're not really surpluses because you're not paying off your bills. So that's Illinois. A politician. They've got actually what's called a rainy day fund, and they'll brag about that. And they'll say, "Oh, we have so much in our rainy day fund. We have billions just sitting in our rainy day fund." But they're not using that rainy day fund to pay off their debts. They're keeping it in this fund, in their savings account. But they've got this mountain of credit card debt, and they can go to the banks and take out all these loans, the bonds, using this big savings account and these surpluses that they've manufactured. And the pension system is collapsing and the debt is growing like a tumor. And I mean, they're just playing trickery and like political math. They're doing political math here to get us even further in the hole, because they use the rainy day fund surplus as a way to take out more loans. So it's all smoke and mirrors, folks. And they get away with it because too many Illinoisans have stopped demanding accountability. I know a lot of you, probably your eyes have started to glaze over and you're like, why does this matter? It really matters because we're tired, we're overtaxed, we're numb. And the truth is, when the people of Illinois stop demanding answers, Springfield wins. Okay, because the goal is not to fix the problem. The goal is to keep the problem alive long enough to fund their next campaign ad. So I want to pull back, look at the moral picture here. What does it say in Proverbs 13:11? Scripture says, "Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but those who gather little by little will increase it." So this is about stewardship, this proverb. Illinois does the exact opposite. They have built their entire empire and, claim the credit ratings are high, and they've built the empire on borrowed money, false promises, and moral bankruptcy. Okay, so when leaders lie about the books, they're not just deceiving the voters, they're mocking God's design for labor and fair stewardship, honest labor and fair stewardship, and they're mocking God with the finances, right? So groups like Truth in Accounting, they pull back the curtain, so good for them. I hope citizens start waking up, and hopefully people in Chicago, even Democrats in Chicago, start waking up and they start asking why or where did all the money go. And I think it's time for Illinoisans, especially Christians and conservatives, to reclaim the moral high ground on fiscal responsibility. We have to say that no, hey, wealth gained hastily is evil, and we have to reclaim the moral high ground on fiscal responsibility. The financial truth is moral truth. Being honest about those fiscal reports, releasing them when they're supposed to be released, doing political math is just sinful. Okay, it's sin covered in spreadsheets, and we have to call this out for what it is: the financial maneuvering and the political math that they pull. We have to call it out for what it is, and it's sin. Illinois, next time you hear J.B. Pritzker brag about the balanced budget or our improved credit ratings, know that you're not hearing the truth. know that you're hearing a sales pitch of a guy who's pretending to be rich. He's trying to sell you the state of Illinois, and he's pretending Illinois is in great financial condition, and it's not, because we have mountains of debt. And I just pointed to two of them: the healthcare promises to the retirees, $21.7 billion, and then the $150 billion in pension debt. And you can pad your rainy day fund, you can pad your funds with surpluses all you want, and put money into the savings account with bond money, with loans. You can pad those accounts all you want to try to improve your credit score, but your credit score is not indicative of your financial condition. How much debt have you got? That is more indicative of your financial condition. It's just like our personal finances, right? So it's time we demand accountability and transparency and truth, not just from Springfield, but from every office and every agency that handles your money. There shouldn't be budgets that are released at midnight, and the people are only given a few short hours, or your representatives are given a few short hours to read the budget fully before voting on it. We need to know how these agencies are spending your money. The future of Illinois will not be saved by slogans like "we have a balanced budget" or "our credit rating is improved." We're not going to be saved by that. We're going to be saved by citizens who refuse to be lied to. The Democrats have lied to you about the financial condition of our state for a long, long time. And we have to demand accountability and honesty, because it's not only moral, but it's biblical. It's sinful to let them keep doing this political math and this financial maneuvering, and we have to hold them accountable. All right, I gotta take a quick break, but I do want to talk about the reaction to President Donald Trump's historic peace deal with Gaza. That has been really interesting. I will talk about President Barack Obama's reaction, because he actually welcomed the deal, but he couldn't bring himself to mention President Donald Trump by name. Something that actually very petty, but even CNN's Caitlin Collins called Barack Obama out on. I'll get to that, and then I'll get to Senator Elizabeth Warren. She implied that she had something to do with the peace deal. And JD Vance shut her down, which I thought was really funny. I'll be right back. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Hey, you're listening to the Conservative Cat Clips. This is the place where we don't call 911 first. Nope, we pray, we prepare, and yes, we pack heat. Every time there's a tragedy, the media and the Democrats, they start crying, do something, and do something. And what they mean is more laws, more bans, and more restrictions, not on criminals, mind you, but on law-abiding citizens. So let me tell you what evil doesn't care about. They don't care about legislation. The man willing to break the sixth commandment, thou shalt not murder, doesn't blink twice at your AR-15 ban. Okay, he doesn't read your gun-free zone signs. He sees those signs and he says, this is an invitation for me. Gun control doesn't stop evil. It disarms good people. The founding fathers didn't give us the Second Amendment so we could go hunting. They gave us the Second Amendment to protect ourselves against tyrants, both foreign and domestic. And newsflash, tyrants don't tend to announce themselves. They come wearing smiles and waving around fancy policies. And I also want to talk about self-defense today. Self-defense. The average police response time in big cities like Chicago could be up to 10 minutes, sometimes even longer. I know the Chicago PD is really struggling with that. Response times in rural areas, it could get up to even 30 minutes response time. So if somebody kicks down your door, are you going to ask them to wait until the government sends backup to protect you, or are you going to protect your family and take matters into your own hands? So grandma, in Peoria, Illinois, she is just trying to defend her property, but yet she's the one treated like a criminal. She has to go through all kinds of crazy background checks, permits, training. And the thug in Chicago, he gets the gun out of his trunk in an alley, and he didn't think twice about our laws, okay? It's about power. It always has been. Every dictatorship in history has disarmed their citizens first. First, that's Stalin, that's Hitler, that's Mao. They didn't want competition. And once the guns were gone, so were the rights, the freedom, and the people. So a disarmed people is a controlled people. But an armed, faithful, and free people, that is a nightmare for tyrants. And really, it's a blessing to your neighbors if you are armed. The Second Amendment isn't outdated. It's eternal. And just like evil, just like our right, just like the evil has the right to do evil things, and that they will, we have the right to resist evil and to arm ourselves. And the Second Amendment is pretty dang clear, shall not be infringed. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. Hey, smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tell someone to subscribe today. That really helps me out. You guys can also visit patriotpumpenergy.com, buy your bottle of premium pre-workout today using promo code ConservativeCat. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about the reaction of folks to the Israel-Hamas peace deal, okay? Donald Trump's historic peace deal in Gaza. The reactions have been interesting. So President Barack Obama, he welcomed the deal, but he refused to mention President Donald Trump's by name. Even Caitlin Collins, the leftist that she is, she kind of called Barack Obama out on that. It was really petty for Barack Obama to not even mention President Donald Trump's name. And there are folks out there like Elizabeth Warren who implied that she had something to do with the achievement. And she delivered some remarks on X. And of course, she had nothing to do with this, but I will tell you what she said on X. For 2 excruciating years, I have called for the return of hostages brutally kidnapped on October 7th and held in Gaza. Today is a good day. Surviving Israeli hostages are finally home and reunited with their loved ones. I'm thinking of them and their families on this joyous day and praying for their full recovery. I'm grieving for all those who can't come home today. Today must also be an important step to lasting peace in the region, peace for both Israelis and Palestinians. We must end the war in Gaza, surge humanitarian aid, and renegotiate a 2-state solution now. Yes, I'm sure they rolled over and agreed not to the deal, or agreed to the deal because Liz said something. I'm sure that's why they agreed to the deal, because Elizabeth Warren had said something. I'm sure that's why not. Okay. They did not roll over because she had said something on X, where has been calling for it for years. If anything, the left made the peace deal harder with their radical protests, which gave Hamas the idea that they could hold out, okay, on this peace deal for as long as they have. So they've made it much worse for the United States to broker this deal, and for Donald Trump to broker this deal between the two parties. So, and she mentions, oh, I've called for this for 2 years. Look, calling for something doesn't, so when it happens, it doesn't necessarily that was a result of you calling for it. Okay, I don't know why Democrats do that. They're great at talking, but they don't get results. Okay, you can call for whatever, and just because it happens doesn't mean that was a result of you calling for it. Okay, many on X, like Senator Ted Cruz, reminded her that, hey, this was President Donald Trump's doing. Here's what President Ted Cruz said about President Donald Trump doing or being the reason for the deal. How on earth do you post this note without uttering the words Donald J. Trump? Partisanship, blindness, and hatred are tearing us apart. So yeah, that was Senator Ted Cruz. She should have said, thank you, President Donald J. Trump. But just like Obama, President Barack Obama, she lacks grace. She did not mention President Donald Trump at all in that little statement that she posted on X. I want to share this. This is actually Steve Guest So he actually wrote this. Funny enough, Elizabeth Warren's 1 out of 1,024th Native American ancestry, still a larger percentage than her contribution to rescuing hostages or achieving peace in the Middle East. Yeah. Vice President J.D. Vance actually got out there. And this is why I brought the story to you, because I think this is just so funny. Vice President J.D. Vance, he leveled her, and he referenced her 1 out of 1,024th claim that she was Native American, her heritage, and that she's part Native American. Okay, remember when she said that. Here's what J.D. Vance said. The president told me that he did this on Indigenous People Day in honor of you. Oh, this is beautiful. Mic drop. The people on X, of course, have loved it. This tweet has got like 10 million views. He's funny. And I'm so excited for him to be the 48th president, because he's certainly going to keep things lively like President Donald Trump has all these years. Both he and Donald Trump are very humorous, but they also like couple that humor with winning. Okay. And he actually achieved this peace deal. And, you know, they might be trollers and they might be really good on the internet and troll these leftists and be talented at that, but they also combine that humor with results. And that is a winning combination. And I think ultimately, because J.D. Vance is so funny, but he also delivers results, unlike Elizabeth Warren, he's going to be elected in 2028 to the presidency. And that's really exciting. So, all right, I think that ends the show today. Appreciate you being here. Subscribe to the channel. If you missed yesterday's show, we went over Christopher Columbus and how it should be called Columbus Day, not Indigenous People Day. And I provide you, you know, facts and details about Christopher Columbus's life and his mission here in the old world, and his mission to turn it into the new world. If you missed that, go find it, like it, share it out with your friends. You guys have a blessed rest of your day. I'm going to be back tomorrow morning, bright and early. Good morning. Appreciate you being here. Go ahead, subscribe. Alan Chapman, Matt Chapman, father. I'm not sure. I know that there's a story out there about Matt Chapman. It was actually picked up by Libs of TikTok. I know October, I think it's tomorrow, 15th, is the school board meeting for Unit 5, which will be fascinating to cover here on the Conservative Cat Show, because they've come under fire recently. Unit 5 is in Central Illinois, folks, if you're not familiar with the area. It's in Central Illinois, Bloomington Normal, and they have come under fire for Matt Chapman wearing an Abolish ICE t-shirt. And I actually put something, and I'll end the show with this. I put something out there on social media about Christian morality and Christian ideals are actually neutral. And we have to have more teachers pushing their Christian Christian principles and morality on students in schools. And I'll make a case for it. So this is what I put on social media. You guys can go follow me, Conservative Cat, on Facebook. Okay. Christianity is morally neutral. Okay. I'm calling on Christian teachers to pray in their classrooms, baptize their children in bathroom sinks, and post the 10 Commandments on their classroom walls. Every side enforces their own morality. Okay. And Matt Chapman, he's a unified school teacher. I think he teaches civics or something. Gets paid very handsomely, from what I can understand, over $90,000 a year, which is so fascinating. I actually found out that nurses are paid like over $100,000 a year as well. And by the looks of it, or by the protests and the screaming, you would think that they're getting paid like less than the average Illinoisan. The average Illinoisan gets paid a salary of $50,000 a year. Most teachers make more than that. And especially when you calculate their summer vacations, their weekends, their couple of weeks off in the fall, couple of weeks off in the spring and the winter, their vacation time, and they have full benefits. They make plenty of money. Okay. Same with nurses. I did not know this, but apparently they make well over $100,000. Most of them do. Anyway, that's a quick aside. Fascinating stuff. We're told a lie that they are, they're like eating peanut butter jelly sandwiches, and like that's not true. Okay, so Christian morality. Christianity is morally neutral. Okay, so every law and every norm reflects someone's moral code. Okay, here in America, our moral law and our code is actually derived from a lot of Leviticus. If you look at Leviticus, most of our laws come from that, right down to what you do when your dog bites somebody. Like Leviticus covers it. So it's all kind of covered in the Judeo-Christian Bible. Thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not kill. Those are the 10 Commandments. That's our moral code as a nation because we are a Judeo-Christian nation. Okay, so when critics say Christians are forcing their beliefs, or that there should be some sort of separation of church and state, what they're actually saying there is that they want their beliefs to be imposed. Okay, they want their secular beliefs to be imposed, and their beliefs are not morally neutral. Okay, we know that Christianity is morally neutral. That's why the founders built this country on Christian principles. Okay, so when teachers, and I don't care how hard they try to say that like their morality and their beliefs are, or their secular beliefs are neutral. I don't care how hard they try to convince you, they're not. There's a reason why the founders chose Christianity, because it's morally neutral. Most people you talk to, even if they don't believe Jesus Christ died for their sins, they don't believe in, God or a creator, they will tell you that Christians are some of the nicest people. Things that came out of Christianity are just good. Okay, like that is usually a point of like consensus that we can all come to, is that Christianity is good. Okay, nothing in Christianity will advocate for killing people, hurting people, right down to biblical marriage. You look at children who come from heterosexual homes, biblical marriage between a man and a woman, those children astronomically outperform academically, socially, mentally, children who come from homosexual homes or non-traditional homes. Okay, I mean, these are just the statistical facts. Okay, and you can't even really argue with it because even the left recognizes that, and they say that it's a problem that has to be dealt with. But really, it's only a problem because it's non-traditional, and the traditional way of doing it always works out for the best and is always better. Okay, so teachers, when they hang the gay pride flags or when they wear the Abolish ICE t-shirts, what they are doing is they are pushing their beliefs because they believe that their beliefs are morally neutral. They're not morally neutral. Christianity is morally neutral, and it always winds up with the best outcomes and yields the best outcomes. And why is that? Well, it's very simple. Jesus said, quote, I am the way, or I am the truth, I am the way, and I am the life. So there is a certain way that we should be living our lives here in America to yield the best outcomes. And what is that way? The life of Jesus and being a follower of Jesus and acting like Jesus acted. Okay, so when they try to impose, abolish ICE, that is an anti-Christian principle. It is not Christianity, and they're trying to force their beliefs on you and claim that it's morally neutral. Teachers who wear Abolish ICE t-shirts, that's what they're doing. They're trying to impose their beliefs, and they think that their beliefs are neutral. It is an anti-Christian principle because the Bible talks about sovereignty and having nations and walls, and it's a Christian principle to have borders. Okay, so by saying abolish ICE, That means you are anti-sovereignty, which means that is an anti-Christian ideal. So I'm calling on teachers, if they are going to hang up the gay pride flags, also gay pride flags, anti-Christian ideology, okay, anti-Christian principle, marriages between man and woman, okay, riddled. Examples are riddled throughout the Bible. That's just anti-Christian ideology, and they're trying to force that because they believe that that is morally neutral. And for years, up to this point, we've all agreed as a nation, our founding fathers even agreed, that the Christianity was neutral. That's why they chose it as the religion to base our rules off of, to base the Constitution off of, and all men are created equal. These are unalienable rights endowed by a creator, right? So I'm excited to find out what happens in Central Illinois with the Unit 5 school board, because there have been calls for Matt Chapman to resign. There have been calls for Alex Williams to resign because he had also posted things about how Christians, I don't remember the exact post. It said something to the effect that Christians, they aren't there for their neighbors who they see every day, but they, claim to serve a God that they don't see every day. I don't know, something that Christians essentially don't serve their neighbors, okay, which is just not true. We talked about Christopher Columbus yesterday, how, out of his frameworks, his moral structure and his legal frameworks that he built and brought to the old world and created the new world, hospitals, all kinds of things, schooling, education, all of that came because Christopher Columbus was, above all else, beyond an explorer. He called himself a man on a mission from God, okay, to cross the sea and to create this new world and to bring Christianity to the ends of the earth. He wrote that down, okay? He believed that he was called by God to do that. And a lot of good things happened in this nation because he brought all that over, Christianity specifically, things like hospitals. So smash that like button, share this out with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye. I love you so much.